All right, and I think that we just went live. Welcome everyone to this webinar co-hosted by Educationscom together with Unibuddy. My name is Alejandro, and I'm not gonna lie, it's actually my first time hosting a webinar, so I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm also really excited to be able to host this event and be here with all of you today. Just before we get started, and to mention some of the webinar tools for any questions that you might have throughout the webinar, please use the Q&A function for that. Comments, you can use the chat box. And for those of you who might be late or couldn't make it on time, or actually you think that we're doing a really good job and you would like to have a look at the webinar again, don't worry, because we will have a recording version available, which we're going to be sharing with all of you later on throughout the day. And yeah, just to go through the agenda of today, we're going to do some introductions from both sides, Educationscom as well as the Unibuddy. And we're going to be talking about how to attract and reassure prospective students from all around the world. Of course, why current students are your best institution ambassadors. We're going to be spending some time as well talking about the integration between Unibuddy Discover on Educations.com, and hopefully we will have a lot of time left to be able to do a good Q&A session with any questions that you guys might have throughout the webinar. So yeah, just to get started with the introductions, I'm sure that a lot of you might be familiar with myself, but as a quick intro, my name is Alejandro. I work as an account manager at Educations.com. I've been within the team for just a little bit over 5 years. And just a couple of fun facts, as you can pretty much appreciate within my accent, I'm not English. I'm not Swedish, although I've been living in Sweden for the last 7 years. I'm actually from Spain, from Madrid, so huge Real Madrid fan. What else can I say? Yeah, love playing tennis, love playing paddle, pretty much any racket sport, and of course spending time or my spare time with my colleagues and friends from the team. But enough about myself. I'm really delighted today to be joined by Sophie Henderson and Jack Craig from Unibuddy, who, as the university partnership managers, they work very closely with universities across the world to build their digital ambassador programs, and will be on hand to talk through the Unibuddy platform and the benefits of peer-to-peer recruitment into more detail. Hi, guys.
Hi, Alejandro. Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. It's delighted to be here today. Really excited for today's session. As Alejandro said, I'm one of the university partnership managers here at Unibuddy, and I look after the Nordics, so all of the countries within the Nordics, as well as Australia and New Zealand. I wasn't going to chat about my kind of interests and stuff, but I love that. So I also love racket sports. I'm a big tennis and badminton fan, and I'm from Northern Ireland. So yeah, if you struggle to understand my accent, I do try and enunciate myself quite well on these webinars. Really excited for today's session. I'll hand over to Jack as well to introduce himself.
Thank you. So yeah, my name's Jack and I'm a partnerships manager at Unibuddy. Predominantly my regions are focused in Europe, Germany, Netherlands, Austria and Switzerland. In terms of racket sports, I have terrible hand and eye coordination. So no, I can run though. So I can run in a straight line and run quite fast. So I do that, but running less. I have a 2-year-old who I blame for my lack of exercise and subsequent weight gain. So back to you, Alejandro.
Perfect. Sounds like all 3 we can have a really cool tennis game. So let's do that as soon as we can start traveling.
Let's do it.
Perfect. But yeah, just as a quick intro regarding Educations.com. Educations.com is part of our larger media group called EMG, who was founded in 2001 with the launch from our first student site for the Swedish market, and on the other side, Educations was launched in 2009. Our focus is to attract prospective students through our useful content that we provide for them through our platforms, and by doing so, we help and connect institutions promoting their brands and programs through our site in order to connect with those prospective students. We work with around 400 different institutions around the world. We reach just under 8 million visitors per year, and we work with more than 300,000 conversions to schools that we generate per year. And those conversions being mainly leads that we can capture through the campaign lead forms that we generate through our platform, as well as via click-throughs or referrals that we can drive to the school's websites or program web pages.
Fantastic. And yeah, I think like Alejandro, it would be really helpful for kind of some of the guys in the call today that may be less familiar with Unibuddy and what we do, just to give you a little bit of an intro. So Unibuddy actually came about as a result of our own kind of founders' experiences as a prospective international student. So Diego, who's our founder, he's a Swiss national. Many years ago now, I was deciding, what institution to study at. I think he was looking at institutions across Europe, as well as the US, looking at different MBA programs in finance. And I think found that whole experience really overwhelming in terms of deciding what institution would be best for him, where he might, enjoy studying the most in terms of location and country, and of course, what MBA program is going to be best suited for him. And during that whole kind of decision-making journey, really just wanted to be able to reach out to a current student or even an alumni of one of those institutions, or having studied one of those programs, to really understand their experiences and what that had been like. So there was no kind of platform in place at that time, kind of facilitating those types of connections and those types of discussions. And that's essentially where kind of the idea for Unibuddy was born. So as you can see there, our kind of primary mission is to really help students to make the best decision for them and feel as though they're not making that decision alone. So really beneficial for, of course, both students and institutions. But for students, it really is about, making sure that they feel like they're making the best decision for them, choosing the right decision for them, institution for them, and somewhere they feel they'll have a good experience. And oftentimes they really need that extra confidence and reassurance before they make the leap and really commit to that. And of course, you can imagine the choice is overwhelming. There's so many different kind of sources of information students can go to now during that decision-making process. They can, of course, go to your own website, but they also have social media, review sites, student forums. And for you guys, for institutions and universities, you obviously want to try and convert the best students, the best fit students. But you really now need kind of a digital journey to really, a digital presence to try and reach and engage with your prospective students, and make sure you're fulfilling that need to reassure and build confidence and create those peer connections. And that's really where kind of peer-to-peer steps in. So obviously as well, competition is fierce, and it's all about how universities can stand out from the crowd with that kind of tsunami of information that's available for prospective students during that decision-making process. And putting your current students or alumni, and also staff as well, out there at the forefront of your communications with prospective students. And current students really are kind of the best assets that you have to really sell your university. So Jack's going to go into a little bit more kind of detail on the platform a little bit later, but I just wanted to kind of introduce a little bit about us. So 4 years on from kind of the inception of Unibuddy, we're now the world's first and leading peer recruitment platform, with well over 450 institutions globally, and very recently reached our milestone of reaching 11 million messages exchanged on the platform. So it's a very exciting time for us at Unibuddy, with almost 1 million prospective students signed up, kind of chatting every day to institutions around the world. So really excited to learn more about, of course, our relationship with Educationscom, and how that can be fruitful for all of us in the future. So I'm going to hand it over to Alejandro, I think, to talk through some of the things that we've kind of learned along the way.
Thanks, Sophie. And it's actually very much related to what you were mentioning about peer-to-peer. We would like to talk about 3 important steps within that reach and reassure within the digital journey from students that are looking for options to study abroad. And that first point, it's that a real experience matters. According to a very recent survey conducted by QS, 84% of students or prospective students, they use social media as part of their higher education research. And that's something that we have seen as well through our own data that we've gathered through the last macro surveys that we've conducted during 2019, as well as 2020 2020. Those two combines, the sample that we had was just over 25,000 prospective students that conducted that survey. And what we can see is that use of social media has increased and has become a really, really valuable and important information. If we look at the data between 2019 and 2020, that's been increasing by 8% on that year to year. Of course, social media content and the consumption from that can apply to all different stages within that student decision-making process. So it can be at the very early stage within awareness, jumping into the research and comparison of different programs, but even at the very confirmation stage. So for example, the students that might have already completed their application processes, or they feel that they're just one step away from studying at X university at X country, they might want to consume that social media content to feel safe and also to feel that they've actually made the right choice when it comes to that. Talking about that second step, building their confidence, of course, especially within that under uncertainty times, as I'm sure that you can all agree that we have been going over the last year or so, we feel that students are more reticent to reach out directly to admissions officers for that first touch points. Students want to have personal communication, and that's where peer-to-peer becomes a really valuable source of information for those prospective students. If we look at the data combined through our Educationscom platform, and if we look at that high peak from March 2020 all the way to December 2020, when it comes to the impact from the pandemic, we have seen a drop of 13% in the total number of IRs or leads that we've generated through our site. But on the other side, we have seen almost a 40% increase in the students gathering more information via click-throughs through schools' sites. So basically creating avenues for those students that can match their comfort levels. And we also feel it's kind of an empathic communication way for those students to meet however they choose, and they see that is the most valuable source for them to connect with those universities and schools. And I think this is actually a cool topic of discussion for all of the attendees in here today. It would be really good to hear as well from your experience, whether maybe through that time frame from early 2020 all the way to the end of 2020, if you've also maybe experienced a decrease in the number of inquiries or leads that you can gather through your website, or maybe on the opposite side, you have seen an increase from the number of leads, maybe compared to other years, because there's been more uncertainty, there's been more questions that students needed answers in order to decide whether they could maybe go and travel abroad, if they could do a blended solution for that specific program, or maybe switch from on-campus to online solutions. So yeah, that would be really, really cool to hear from all of you. And then that third step, it's the creating belonging. And we really feel that peer-to-peer storytelling works. If we look at the data from different surveys, for example, 24% of the students wants to interact with current students. The amount of students who choose to hear from our own service as well, we have seen that current student stories as a top of information source has increased by 17% across those 2 years of survey data that we have gathered. In fact, from 2019 to 2020, we have seen that it's become increasing from that third position all the way to being the #1 factor for students to get that kind of like reassurance for them.
Cool. So thank you, Alejandro. I'm going to sort of pick up from here. So before we talk about the Unibuddy Educations.com integration specifically, I thought it would be helpful to provide some more context on how the main Unibuddy platform works. Those statistics that Alejandro just highlighted really illustrate why at Unibuddy we are placing so much emphasis on the role of the student voice in attracting and recruiting students. As the QS and the education surveys indicate, the majority of your prospects will be seeking feedback from current students or recent alumni at the universities they're researching. And this feedback currently will typically come through their existing network or relationship with the school. social media, or peer review sites. So what our platform does, it just enables prospective students to connect directly with student ambassadors without the need to have an existing connection to the school, or to take what can feel like a plunge and reach out to a stranger on social media. And from a university's perspective, you can ensure that your prospects are connecting with your best student advocates who have received training, and that they're receiving a prompt and accurate response. And critically, and we'll talk about this in a bit more detail, unlike social media, you're generating a lead and capturing the details of every prospect who has a chat with one of your ambassadors, which means you can then follow up with and nurture that prospect. Technically, in terms of how it works, the main chat platform is embedded on the university website, and prospects can search ambassadors according to their course, nationality, degree level, campus. You can customize by what fits for your university. And the format of the conversation is similar to a WhatsApp or a text exchange. So ambassadors would receive a notification and a message on their phone, and they respond via an app. And the expectation is that they're going to be sending that response and getting back to your prospect in under 24 hours. And then what we're seeing with our university partners, and this speaks to Alejandro's point about people having different comfort levels with how they engage with an institution. What we're seeing is that prospective students often find this option of chatting to a student more compelling than maybe more common calls to action, such as requesting a prospectus or requesting more information via a static form. And in some cases, our partners are generating over 5 times as many leads on their homepage via Unibuddy when compared to these traditional calls to action. And this just indicates that prospects really do want to have authentic interactions online with real students at the universities they're researching. So as well as the chat platform, our partners can host live video events through Unibuddy. Unibuddy Live has been designed specifically for higher education, so it has additional functionality compared to standard streaming platforms. This includes direct messaging, kind of breakout channels, and clearly defined attendee roles for prospects, student ambassadors, and staff. And this means that as well as sort of accessing content, prospects can have more personal conversations and interactions with staff, students, and each other during an event. And then they can return to the main platform to continue these conversations after an event has finished. So we see attendees coming back again and again to kind of chat with ambassadors or staff who they built a relationship with during these events. So the live events and the chat platform, we see as a highly effective way of converting and nurturing students who are engaging with your website, your paid ads, social media, or your email campaigns. But what's really exciting about the Educations.com partnership is that it's enabling these really impactful peer-to-peer conversations to happen earlier in the prospect decision-making process before they're landing or searching for you on Google. And what this partnerships means is that you can include your ambassadors on your kind of main university profile or course pages within Educations.com. And they'll also be included in the Discover platform that's going to be hosted on the site. So this means that when browsing a course page, alongside information such as course content or entry requirements, a prospect is going to be able to access and chat to ambassadors studying on that specific course and hear firsthand about their experiences. And in terms of the Discover platform, this will allow prospects to search across participating ambassadors by the subject they're studying, where they're based, their country of origin. So if we take an example, say a prospect's interested in studying an MBA in Spain, they could then search across all the ambassadors who are studying an MBA at a Spanish university and potentially chat to multiple ambassadors who meet that profile. And, as with the main platform, you'll generate a lead if a prospect registers and starts a conversation, and you'll be capturing their name, email, course of interest, and that prospect can then be tracked as they progress through your recruitment process. And what we anticipate is that this is a way of generating more student leads and connecting with prospects who may not have otherwise connected with your school. Because as I said, we've turned to this how different prospects want to engage with universities varies. Some want to fill out a form and receive information. Some want to turn up to an event. Some want to have an online chat with a staff or student ambassador. And this means that you're kind of hopefully capturing those students whose that's their preferred method of engaging with you. And what we're seeing actually with our early kind of pilot customers on Educations.com is that prospects do want to have these conversations even at this earlier stage in the decision-making process. So over the past few weeks, we've been trialing the integration with a couple of our mutual partners, and already 170 prospects have signed up across these schools, with over 17% of users who click through to the platform via educations.com going on to start a conversation. And an interesting non-Unibuddy related trend that our colleagues at educations.com have highlighted is the way that prospects are accessing and comparing information on the site is changing. For example, if we go back to April last year, the average student on educations.com was comparing 2 schools when using the site. In April 2021, so last month, that average has risen to 4 schools. And in 12 months, basically, students are visiting and comparing twice as many schools when visiting the site. Additionally, students looking at program pages were spending on average 2 minutes and 2 seconds on a page. They're now spending 3 minutes and 27 seconds. So what this indicates is that students are spending more time on the site and looking at and comparing more schools whilst they're there. And what we see Unibuddy doing in this partnership with educations.com is giving universities a way of building meaningful, authentic connections with these prospects and allowing them to get insights and guidance from real student advocates when they're doing this research. So that was a high-level overview. And before we kind of open up for questions for the audience, I think it's just important to emphasize that by enabling and encouraging these peer-to-peer connections on your website, through online events, and through Discover partnerships like what we have with educations.com, then we do see for our partners an impact at every stage of the recruitment process. So as well as generating leads, we see Unibuddy support conversion at every stage of the recruitment process. So just to kind of walk you through the stats on this funnel slide, at Imperial College Business School, we see 47% of users who chat on the platform going on to submit an application. At Middlesex University London, they conducted a case study whereby 54% of offer holders who chatted to a Unibuddy ambassador accepted their offer. At St. John's in the US, they increased their yield amongst users by 12%, so up from 16 to 28% of users went on to yield. And at Erasmus School of Economics, they saw a 30% increase in enrollment rates amongst offer holders who chatted on the platform. So they went from 60% to 90% of offer holders enrolling and turning up on day one. So in terms of the next steps, so hopefully that's given you some insights into Unibuddy, educations.com, and our new partnership. We've saved quite a lot of time for questions. So I wanted now to open up to the audience and see if any of you had any questions about Unibuddy, about educations.com, or about how the partnership works.
Actually, I have a question, Jack and Sophie. I promise we haven't prepared this question, but I just thought that I could just maybe give some time to the audience to drop in any questions that they might have. But I remembered listening to a webinar that you guys hosted some time ago. It was kind of a partnership university example where that university went from the first year working with Unibuddy, using about 20 to 30 different student ambassadors, to the second year and jumping into more than 100 student ambassadors. And I guess that maybe also relates a little bit to the audience today, but it would be really cool to hear as well from your side, like tips and tricks, or basically how can universities incentivize the students to become brand ambassadors for their institutions. Do you have any kind of like advice or tips for them?
Good question. I would say Certainly, in my regions that I look after across the Nordics and Australia, New Zealand, it's quite a wide range of different ways that they incentivize and motivate their ambassadors. So I know in Australia, for example, they have certain laws around kind of Fair Work Act, and they're certainly quite keen to pay their ambassadors kind of an hourly rate. And through the platform, you can track, of course, how long the student ambassadors are spending actually responding to those inquiries and having discussions with prospective students. So it's a really easy way to manage and track, you know, how much that student should be reimbursed. But also I think voluntary programs are also quite popular. So, you know, some advice and tips I would say, you know, have a look and chat to what your colleagues across different institutions are doing. You can provide, you know, university swag, you know, every student loves a kind of free hoodie or, you know, backpack, whatever it might be. A lot of institutions in Australia that run voluntary programs can do really, you know, cool things like award shows throughout the year and provide, you know, prizes and awards for the most engaged ambassador, or, you know, the ambassador with the fastest response time, loads of different cool stuff like that, stuff that you can track through the platform. So I think it's kind of figuring out what's going to work for your institution in terms of, you know, compliance with different laws that are in the region, but also what you think your students will respond best to. And often that isn't necessarily money. It sometimes can be access to those types of events or professional development opportunities as well. I don't know if Jack has anything to add to that as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point to kind of think about the profile of your students. So as I said, we have a mixed economy of some doing purely paid, some doing purely voluntary, many of a combination of the two. But, you know, I work with a lot of business schools, and on average, an ambassador spends about 2 hours a month answering questions. So if you're dealing with executive MBA ambassadors, paying them 2 hours a month at a kind of like sort of 15 euros, you know, per hour really isn't going to be a huge incentivization. Whereas for an undergrad student who's also working part-time, that 30 euros a month will make a big difference. So, I mean, it is really, I think it varies from institution, but as Sophie said, really do also think about the profile of your ambassadors and talk to them as well. Talk to your ambassadors and kind of work with them to kind of build an incentivization structure that works. We're getting some questions coming in now, so I'm just going to kind of tackle these. Question here, we already have a partnership with Unibuddy. If I understand correctly, we can also have our ambassadors on the Education's Unibuddy page now. Yes, so in the audience, there'll be many kind of mutual partners who already have accounts with both Unibuddy and Educations.com. If that's the case, just reach out to your customer success manager and they'll be able to kind of establish that and set your ambassadors up on the platform. There's an additional addendum to the license agreement that you would need to sign. But yeah, that's a relatively straightforward process. And you could kind of send that email today and get the ball rolling with getting your ambassadors added as soon as possible. Are there any benefits with educations for unibuddy.com in terms of discounts? So in terms of the kind of commercial terms, we do have kind of particular introductory offers we can talk through. What I would recommend though is kind of taking that offline and reaching out to myself or Sophie, and I'll share our contact details at the end, and we can talk through that in more detail, because it will vary whether you're already an existing partner or you're entirely new to both organizations and so on. So that's definitely one that we can explore and can discuss on a basis with individual universities. How did Unibuddy choose Educations.com, and what was the criteria for kind of working with them?
Great question.
It's a good question. I think from kind of looking at it, there's a lot of synergies in terms of, one, our kind of mission in terms of what we're trying to do. I think at our heart, we're both helping students choose the right university for them. I think at our core, that's what our mission is. But also, you know, in terms of the types and profile of universities we work with and the kind of regions we specialize in, there were a lot of synergies in that as well. So I think it just felt like a natural fit for the Discover platform, both in terms of mission, but also the kind of profile and nature of the organizations we work with. Alejandro, was there anything you wanted to kind of add to that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very, really good point. And I think that from our side, over the last 6 to 8 months, we've also hosted different global study abroad online fairs And one thing that we realized is that when we were like setting up different booths for those institutions attending those virtual fairs, we had university representatives for also admissions departments or marketing and recruitment, let's say, people that were kind of like wanting to connect with the students that were attending these fairs. We also added the option to bring ambassadors from those institutions to the fairs. And what we actually found out is that a lot of the times, students were more likely to reach out to the ambassadors instead of the official university or school representatives. And that actually made us think as well that for us it's really important to nurture those students with an additional touch point. If, as we were mentioning throughout the presentation at the beginning, not every student wants to straight away convert into a lead. Maybe not every student wants to also find and compare different programs by clicking through to program web pages, but some students, they just want to get benefit from that, like peer-to-peer connection, so talking to other students. And that's one of the points that we actually found really, really beneficial to partner with Unibuddy, so that we could also create an additional kind of like bridge for students to connect with other students and get to learn and to hear about from their own experiences.
Awesome. And more questions coming in, as this is great. First, a one on terminology, and I'll handle this one. What is the meaning of buddy? Do you call a student ambassador a buddy? Internally, we refer to ambassadors as buddies. In terms of our university partners, some also use that terminology. So on their marketing and on their homepage, they'll say chat to a buddy. Others will say chat to a student or chat to a student ambassador. But yes, essentially a buddy and a student ambassador is the same thing. And next question, I'm going to hand this one to you, Sophie. So this is a question about what languages do ambassadors communicate in on the platform? So specifically here, the guest has asked, do you include ambassadors speaking in Spanish for the South America market or only English speakers? This isn't unique to Spain. This is any kind of non-Anglo country or any university who are fielding inquiries from non-Anglo speakers. So Sophie, what's your take on that one?
Yeah, so the good news is that students can chat in their local home language on the platform, so they can chat in whatever language they would like on the actual chat element of the platform. We are undergoing fairly big project here at Unibuddy in terms of our product development to actually make the front end of the platform available in many different languages. We've already started, I think, with Dutch. I think French is coming soon, if not already, as well as US English. So very shortly, we will have a whole host and an array of different languages that you can have on the front end of the platform. But even as the platform is now, yeah, you can rest assured that your ambassadors can chat with prospective students in whatever language they would like on the actual chat element of the platform as well.
Yeah, so Sophie's bang on there, just to kind of elaborate on the localization. So currently, ambassadors can list their profile in Spanish, if we use this example, and they can communicate in Spanish. The localization project will mean that all of the kind of hard-coded aspects are not what the ambassador's putting into their profile, but, you know, the sign-up form, the notification emails, that will also be available in other languages. So as I said, US English, Dutch, and French is already live. We're now looking at kind of rolling this across the rest of Europe as well. So we have this full suite of localized platforms. So great question. But yeah, we see lots of conversations taking place in the native language of both the ambassador and the prospect on the platform now. So I'm going to just, before we kind of wrap up, I'm going to kind of just hold for a couple of seconds just to kind of give everyone the opportunity. If there are any burning questions, please send them now, because I am about to kind of go on to our final slide and wrap up. So it looks like we may be done for questions. So now I'm just going to kind of thank everyone in the audience for, oh, we've got one more. Okay. So final question, we managed to get one in. Again, if you've got questions, do ask them now, because it will take a while to answer this. So we've got more coming in. Awesome. Right. Okay. So will individual buddies be able to opt in to be listed on educations.com, or is it all or none? That's a good question, and I don't know the answer. So I'm going to take that one away. Sophie or Alejandro, are either of you sure of that answer, or based on our other?
I'm not entirely sure, but I think that basically what we do is that we mirror the Unibuddy Discover through our widget on Educationscom. So for example, if you have, let's say 5 ambassadors, we will display those 5. If you have 10, we will display those 10 within the widget, but we will get back to them with the accurate answer.
Okay, yeah, no, we'll get back to you. So thank you for flagging that.
Just to add, just the Ed, who looks after partnerships at Unibuddy, is just mentioned, it looks like there is some choice there. So this is, it seems like university admins can decide which buddies or ambassadors they want to have appear on the Discover platform with Educations.com. So
awesome. The head of strategic partnerships has saved the day. So yes, the answer is you can opt in, so you don't have to put all of them on. Brilliant. Well, that was nice. Another question. So how many ambassadors would you consider necessary for a big university, 60,000 students? Excellent question. We have a real range. So like we have some partners such as King's College who have upwards of about 300 ambassadors. And I would say that's really high. And then we have sort of smaller universities who may have 5 or 6 ambassadors on there. It's not just about size of university, it's also kind of website traffic, but where you're promoting it on the webpage. So if we go with the King's example, King's promote this on like really high traffic areas of the webpage on multiple locations. So therefore, you know, get an enormous amount of traffic through the platform and therefore have this sort of 300 plus ambassadors. I would say though, with 60,000, you'd be looking at, if you're promoting in high traffic areas, around the kind of 100 mark eventually. But what most partners do is maybe start with a smaller number. Alejandro alluded to this, maybe start with 10, 20, 30, and then build the ambassador program. But I would say be looking, you know, over the course of the relationship, if you were to embed Unibuddy, to be aiming for maybe about 100 ambassadors. But with the caveat, that's very much dependent on where and how you're promoting the platform. Cool. Well, I think that is it now for questions. So thank you everyone for kind of joining today and for like being so engaging and participating. It's been a really great session. I've enjoyed it. I hope you've all enjoyed it and found it informative. If you are interested in learning more about Unibuddy or our partnership with Educations.com, don't hesitate to kind of get in touch. You can reach me or Sophie via the emails listed on this slide, and we can make sure then that we can pick up the conversation with either ourselves or one of the other partnerships managers. There will be a recording of the session circulated, so that will be, you know, over the next day or so. You'll receive that from the team at Educations.com. So that's going to be sort of goodbye from me, and I guess goodbye from Sophie and Alejandro as well.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Lovely. I really enjoyed it. Really good session.
Me too. Thank you both for the session, and we'll see you both very soon as well.
Absolutely. See you all soon. Bye.
See you all soon. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.